What's wrong with Meredith's failed relationships? How is Graceland Memorial Hospital a lawless land? And why are fans still upset about Karev's lackluster departure? Hi, I'm Joy. Question: is it really a plot hole if we don't mind it happening? Let's find out. Medicine is a seriously risky business. Of course, we expect to see tragedy and drama at a hospital. But for the cast of Grey's Anatomy, being a medical professional actually seems to mean being a target for the Grim Reaper. Sure, we expect the occasional patient to die, but the doctors? Not so much. It started with George O'Malley's horrific death by bus in Season 6. Then we said a tragic farewell to some of the Mercy West transfers during a hospital shootout in the same season. 2 years later, we had to keep our cool when Lexi died in a plane crash, and again when Mark followed her soon after. But that's not all. There have been heart attacks, electrocutions, fires, car accidents, tumors, falling icicles, and explosions. And we're not going to mention Derek's death because even though it's been a few years, it's still too soon. Have you ever noticed that time seems to speed up for the lucky doctors who managed to recover from their brushes with death? I mean, Meredith was back at work pretty soon after almost being blown up. And Amelia did manage to recover from brain surgery and get back to work in less than a week. And honestly, as unrealistic as this may be, we love it because it shows our favorite doctors in the best light. They choose to stay busy and help others rather than wallow in self-pity. Basically, working at Graceland Memorial is like gambling with your life every day. Let's just say we can't help but wonder why no one has considered a musical episode filled with ghosts and ghouls, because this hospital is definitely cursed. Oh wait, we've had something kinda similar before.
If I lay here, if I just lay here.
And even though it may make us groan aloud or throw popcorn at our screens, we can't deny that this level of drama is exactly why we keep watching Grey's. Injuries and deaths make for some pretty epic television after all. What about the Hippocratic Oath? They may have sworn not to harm their patients, but the staff at Graceland Memorial probably made no such promise to their coworkers because there are a few seriously skewed moral compasses in the building. Take George and Callie's relationship. Not only was he okay with his fellow interns treating her badly, but he cheated on his new wife pretty soon after their I do's, which ultimately led to their divorce. Yet even though the relationship resulted in several broken hearts and all new levels of glorious awkwardness, it worked. I mean, people do make mistakes, and this one led to some pretty amazing storylines after on, including Callie having a baby with Mark and meeting Arizona. I guess the cheating actually had to happen. Who would have thought? But George wasn't the only surgeon with bad habits. Dr. Weber continually helps other doctors hide their mistakes. Owen Hunt is constantly getting himself involved in some pretty awkward love triangles and paternity issues. And Alex totally disappears from his wife and job. This is all pretty bad for the hospital's reputation. As we're often reminded, the doctors work at a teaching hospital, but all we've learned at Graceland Memorial is that anything goes. Where to start? Christina and Izzy displaying an enormous tumor for cash? Interns performing surgery on themselves because they weren't getting enough time in ORs? Awkward meetups in the on-call rooms? Or how about staff using a coma patient's room to swap gossip or get personal? Yes, there are many moments in which the cast makes us raise an eyebrow at our screens, but these moments are what ensure Grey's Anatomy's success. They put the drama in medical drama, and we love getting our daily dose. If you like time travel and solving mysteries, you'll love the mobile game June's Journey. Placing yourself in June's shoes, you'll travel to her family estate to solve the murder of her beloved sister and husband. It's set in the past, 1920s to be exact, so you can transport yourself back in time for a few minutes or more a day as you investigate scenes and find objects and clues. The scenes are colorful and intricate and will have you wanting more. If you love older murder mystery cases, then you'll love this. What's best about it? It's a totally free-to-play mobile game for both Android and Apple. What's not to love? Download it now using links in the description. You won't regret it. There's no law in Shondaland. There's a thin line between a mistake and malpractice, and we've seen plenty of both in this show. But what we haven't seen are the legal repercussions of some pretty dodgy dealings. Whether it's Izzy putting Denny's life at risk for a new heart, Meredith messing with a medical trial, or Ben performing a C-section in a corridor after opening a patient's chest with a freaking clipboard, we can't believe how these guys have managed to keep their jobs or their medical licenses. And it's not just these doctors' actions that land them in hot water. They also have a habit of not doing their jobs properly. Have you ever wondered how Meredith managed to disappear and stay totally incommunicado for almost a year after Derek died, only to return to her job like nothing happened? In reality, an MIA doctor in such a busy hospital would have been replaced, and we doubt they'd be welcomed back with open arms. But then again, maybe real doctors just aren't like Meredith Grey, but more on that in a moment. The chief of surgery's luck even held up when she was charged with insurance fraud. In fact, her arrest and trial set the perfect scene for her to confront the doctor who was responsible for Derek's death. So despite the fact that the entire fraud story could have been avoided by another much simpler plan, like employing the patient's father, we have no regrets that it happened because closure is just as important as justice. Is Meredith actually Wonder Woman? Ellen Pompeo's character does more than just skirt around the law. Dr. Grey must have the worst luck of any person in the world. From the moment we meet her in the series premiere, Meredith's life is tainted by tragedy, which has famously molded her character into the dark and twisty person that we love so much. But we can't help wondering how the Grey's Anatomy writers can allow one person to experience so much misery. She may be the protagonist, but does she also have to be a torture victim? At home, she had a bad childhood and later watched her mother succumb to Alzheimer's and her father to alcohol. Romantically, when she meets the man who could be her happy ending, he's married. At work, she's been subjected to shootings, bombs, near drowning, and the deaths of friends. She's had miscarriages, been brutally attacked by a patient, was in a plane crash and lost her sister, and still the Grey's writers weren't easing up on poor Meredith because after all of that, she lost Derek. How can one person experience so much devastation and still get up day after day without having superpowers? Another person would go totally crazy in those circumstances or move somewhere really far away from the memories. But considering that such a response would mean the end of the show, we have to admit that we're pretty glad that Mare is so dark and twisty because it means we'll see her continue to persevere and get right back up when she falls. Yes, Queen. When a romance flatlines. It's tough to decide what's really the main focus of Grey's Anatomy, the medicine or the romance. Although we love the fact that we get extra-large servings of both in each season, not all romances are created equal, and this is especially true for Meredith. I'm sure we can all agree that the Mare-Dare relationship was a fairy tale come true, the type of relationship that gives us FOMO and envy. So when it ended, there was a Derek-sized hole in most of our hearts, and Shondaland wanted to remedy this as soon as possible, but couldn't find the right fit. However, this worked to Ellen Pompeo's advantage. The actress was initially surprised that the writers wanted to bring in a love interest so soon after Derek, as she felt that it was a criticism of her ability to carry the show without a man at her side. And after a long line of awkward romances, we've got to agree with Ellen. Mare doesn't actually need a man. She's got more than enough to offer on her own. Nevertheless, we saw her try to make it work with a few new boos. Her romance with Nathan Riggs fizzled out when he reunited with Megan. Murr's relationship with DeLuca was strained because of his history with her sister, his mental illness, and their age difference. Then there's a bit of back and forth between her and Link before he settles for her other sister. But does she really need a +1? After all, it's her name on the show and on the hospital, and she has a family along with an intensely busy and successful career, so when on earth would she find time for lip-locking? There are only so many hours in a day, after all. When good storylines go really bad. It's every writer's nightmare for a good idea to turn into bad television, and yet that's exactly what happened to one Grey's Anatomy storyline. Unlike the other plot holes we've already mentioned, we can't forgive this one. Can you guess what we're referring to? If you thought about Alex and Izzy, congrats! This relationship had been a headache since the beginning. After Izzy's failed romances with Denny and George, we didn't really expect her to fall for Alex, but she did, and it was really sweet for all of 5 minutes before it fell apart. After her cancer diagnosis and subsequent operations, and despite being married to Alex, Izzy upped and disappeared, leaving her hubby with nothing but debt for her treatment. Unsurprisingly, this left viewers feeling cheated, but her lackluster send-off was actually the actress's own fault. According to a 2020 interview with the current showrunner, Krista Vernoff, Katherine Heigl simply refused to arrive for her final episode, which was supposed to focus on Izzy and Alex's relationship and draw it to a nice close. Vernoff explained, "I wrote that episode and it was beautiful. The day before it was supposed to start shooting, we got a call that Katie wasn't coming. Just wasn't coming, wasn't gonna do it." But that's not how Katherine Heigl remembers it. The actress admitted in January 2021 that she hadn't known about the episode and was at home on family leave waiting for confirmation that her contract was over. Regardless of the reason, Izzy's final episode never happened, and it had a huge impact on the show's future, and especially Alex Karev's eventual departure. And here's how. When Justin Chambers resigned from Grey's Anatomy, it posed a problem for his character's send-off. At the time, Vernoff explained that the writers had limited options for Alex's farewell, because like with Katherine Heigl, Justin Chambers wasn't present to film his final episode. That left 3 equally unattractive options: kill him, have him alive but unseen in Seattle, or have him reunite with Izzy. Vernoff elaborated that if they had killed Alex, it would have been cruel to everyone, and particularly Meredith. And let's face it, as we already mentioned, she's been through enough. The showrunner explained, "There was no way not to put those characters through gut-wrenching, ongoing grief if we had killed Alex off camera." Pfft, tell that to Joe. If, like us, you were hoping for a 4th option that didn't involve him abandoning Joe for Izzy, you're not alone, because Katherine Heigl is also Team Joe. When she found out about how Alex's departure took place, several months after it happened as she stopped watching Grey's years ago, instead of being happy that her character was revived, in name at least, Katherine was appalled. She immediately asks, "Listen, isn't that an asshole move?" We can only hope that this will be the last bad storyline we'll see in Grey's. No pressure, Shonda Rhimes. Don't forget to check out our other videos about Grey's Anatomy to get your fix. And until next time, stay awesome.